First, thought we'd start with just, if you give a brief 2-minute introduction of yourself. Okay, Tori? It's fine, just stand your seat.
Thank you. If I sit, I might go back to sleep. Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here with you this morning, and thank you for inviting us. I very rarely see a sunrise. I am not the most morning person, but am delighted to wake up this morning and be here with you. My name is Victoria Woodards, and I'm asking to be your next mayor of this great place we call home, the City of Destiny. A little bit about me: I have been in Tacoma since I was 3 years old. My father was in the Air Force. My mother was from England, and he got stationed here, and we settled here. And I have been here ever since. Proud graduate of Lincoln High School. Go Abe's. Are there any Abe's in the room? This might be the first room I've been in where there wasn't a Lincoln Abe somewhere in the room. But a proud graduate of Lincoln High School, and after high school I took a different route. I joined the U.S. Army. I thought it'd be a great opportunity to serve my country and to see the world. And I got stationed right here at Fort Lewis, Washington. So I always tell people the only world I saw was the dirt at Fort Dix, New Jersey, when I was stationed there doing push-ups. But I'm really glad about that, because I got stationed right back here at home, this place I call home and the place I love so much. In addition to being a U.S. Army veteran, I have 30 years of public, private, and nonprofit experience. Most recently, I was the president and CEO of the Tacoma Urban League, and currently I serve as the director of community services for the Tacoma Rainiers. In addition to that, I have 12 years of elected experience, having spent 5 years as a park commissioner and then 7 years on the city council. As a park commissioner, I'm really proud of several projects, but one being the new Star Center that we built on the south side of Tacoma. The south side of Tacoma finally got their community center, and that was a project that I led. And as a city council member, I'm very proud of the work we did around Project Peace, which was an opportunity for this community to have dialogue about community and police relations, and then the fact that we created an Office of Equity and Human Rights in the city of Tacoma while I was on the city council. I'm running to be your next mayor because I love this city, and I think the city is a great place, but we need to make sure that this city provides opportunities for everyone who lives here. As I've been talking to people, the 3 things I hear the most are people want to make sure that we're creating more family wage jobs, that we're reinvesting in public safety, and that we're protecting our safety net, especially as it relates to affordability, as it relates to mental health and the homelessness. I want to be your next mayor because those are challenges I want to address, and I want to make Tacoma a place where everyone has an opportunity to fulfill their destiny, and I look forward to getting into more questions as we move forward.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Jim?
It's nice to be here with fellow Rotarians. I have been a Rotarian for 40 years, 10 as a charter member of the Fife Melton Club, and then moved to Tacoma 8, and my office was right down there in a walk to Tacoma 8 for years. The 4-way test: is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendship? Will it be fair to all concerned? It's all what I live by and what I need to express and what I want to be as your mayor. Again, I'm Jim Merritt, and I'm running for mayor of Tacoma. Now, I grew up on the east side of town in Fife. I graduated from Fife High School, where I played football, basketball, and baseball. I was the first member of my family to go to college. I graduated from the University of Washington, College of Architecture and Urban Planning. Now, what we have as a city, what I have to talk about really is we have a city that has exceptional opportunities. I've spent my entire career making Tacoma an exceptional city to live, work, and raise a family. My leadership made Saco to Point Ruston, Boss Waterway redevelopment, and Tacoma Union Station restoration possible, providing those family wage jobs while preserving local landmarks. Now, Tacoma has incredible untapped potential. If we maximize our competitive advantage, we can become the economic engine for all of Southwest Washington and the Olympic Peninsula. As mayor, I can realize this long-term vision for Tacoma. That will include family wage jobs, restoring funding to public safety, and listening to the voices of all of our citizens. I am running for mayor to change the culture of local government. Tacoma should be working with citizens, not against them. Tacoma should listen to taxpayers, not special interests. A vote for me as mayor of Tacoma is not a vote for an agenda, it's a vote for a seat at the table. So I humbly ask for your support and vote for Mayor of Tacoma. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. Initially, I'd like each one of you to focus on a description of what you consider to be the main rights and responsibilities of the role of the Tacoma mayor, because every city seems to have a different system. So, who'd like to start?
So my turn first?
You know how this works.
They don't need me.
I served on the charter review in 2014, so I know the charter extremely well. We have a city manager, we have a mayor and a council. The mayor acts as the head of that runs the meetings of the council, but the city manager is more internal, and I believe the mayor needs to be more external and reach out. I think it's something that we really haven't seen much in the last 2 terms, that we need a mayor that will reach out and really work and be a team player with citizens in the community. Need to help. There are businesses that have left town because the communication lacked with our city council. There are those that question whether they should even be here, where we need the family wage jobs. So the mayor needs to really be one that reaches out and is available. I intend to be available and transparent at all times. One of my key elements is taking the door off the hinges to the mayor's office. What I want to do is have open and availability and reach out and be seen and one that you can really talk to. That's what a mayor needs to do. He needs to really stand up. He needs to go to the companies. What can we do for you? How can we make things better to make sure that the growth of the city can be healthy and that we can really do the things we need to do to take care of public safety and the infrastructure of our city. So I think there's a big role, and I'm ready to lead the charge to make that happen.
Thank you, Jim. Victoria.
I think the mayor is the face of the city. The mayor is the person who people identify as the leader in their city. The city manager takes care of the day-to-day operations of the city. And I agree, the mayor is the person who operates outside of the day-to-day operations of the city. But I think the mayor plays a real role in convening people in this city and in collaborating with people in the city. The mayor's role is really to bring people together, to be able to have tough conversations, to be able to get things done. And so I think as mayor, that is the role that we play.
Thank you. All right, and now I'll start with our questions from our Rotarians. In the near future, Tacoma will be losing yet another major employer located in the downtown, DeVita. What do you think is wrong with our city that prevents companies from staying? What do you think can be done about it? What would you do? Victoria, would you like to go first?
So it is really disheartening that DeVita is leaving Tacoma. And not making excuses for why DeVita is leaving Tacoma, but DeVita wants to be in a suburban campus, and downtown Tacoma is anything but suburban. And we have lost other companies. But I think there are a couple of things. One, we have got to make sure that businesses who are in Tacoma are happy doing business here. We need to understand when they're not before we actually get to the point that they want to leave. But we also need to make sure that we are building a business space here in Tacoma, that when a company does leave, it's not the end of the world for Tacoma. Companies leave Seattle every single day, but that's not the front page of the newspaper. Because they have enough businesses in Seattle to sustain themselves. We need to make sure that we have enough businesses in our downtown core that when someone leaves, it's not the end of the world. The other thing that I think is really unique and special about Tacoma is that look what we did with Frank Russell and with Weyerhaeuser. They started in Tacoma and look how they grew up. What if we began to market Tacoma, in addition to getting businesses to stay here, as an incubator? Come to Tacoma, we know how to get your business to grow. And you can be the next Frank Russell, or you can be the next Weyerhaeuser. So I think we need to look at some of the things that we do as an asset and not always as a deficit. Tacoma's a great place to do business, but we do have to get to the heart of some of the things that are wrong, like our permitting process. I also want to make sure that we have somebody at the city who wakes up every single day in addition to the mayor, thinking about how we create jobs and how we retain jobs in this city. It's part of the economic development framework, and it's in everybody's job, but there's not one person in addition to the council and the mayor who wake up every day focused on how do we make sure that you stay here. As mayor, I also want to put together a business advisory council that works directly with the mayor, not with staff, so that we're continuously having conversations about what business needs are and how we can make sure that business stays here, that business is happy. And I think we have to have those conversations ongoing, and not just when someone gets upset or when something happens and someone doesn't want to be here anymore. We've got to be talking about those things all the time so that we can be more preemptive and be more responsive to what the needs of our businesses are.
Thank you. Jim?
We are not a business-friendly city. We have got to start understanding what it takes to grow jobs and business in this community. And it has been a tragedy. It did start back in the 70s when Weyerhaeuser left town. Why did that happen? Well, there are stories about our council even then not being very responsive. Losing Russell in the last 8 years was another very big hit. Should never have happened. The city council and the mayor were ignoring some of their issues. DeVita is a tragedy. Things are happening there that should never have happened. Also, many of you may know or may not know, Brown Hinton and Haley, a 100-year-old company in this city, is 80% outside our city now. Their corporate headquarters is actually in Fife, and the CEO is about ready to flip his address because of the non-responsiveness of our city. This goes on and on. We need to be a reliable city that has answers. Companies know this. This thing with Amazon, thinking, well, maybe we can get them to Tacoma. It should have happened a few years ago that the mayor should have gone to Bezos and say, would you consider Tacoma as you're expanding? How do we do that? Nothing was done. To do a task force committee now to do that seems the horse has already left the barn. But you know what would happen? A company like that would make a few calls, and the first 10 calls to who? The CEO of Amazon would call Frank Russell Company, would call Weyerhaeuser, would call DeVita. Why are you leaving? There are other secondary excuses. Sure, those were startup companies, but why are we losing our companies once they get solid? We've got to have reliability. We do not have a coordinated permit process, and even the small business. There are projects in this town now that cannot get going because they can't get the permit out. We're not getting responsive answers. We need to do better. It's why I believe in my background as an architect and planner, I've dealt with every single department. I've dealt with municipalities all over the Northwest. I know where good examples are, where things we don't want to go to. We need to do better. My background is what a city can use to look at all of these components of land use and relationships of businesses and how we work. This needs to make a course correction as a city if we're going to get the jobs growing here. Otherwise, we cannot afford what needs to happen to take care of people in this city. And this is a serious step in this direction of which way are we going to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Rotary is an organization that likes to partner with others to achieve goals. What partners do you see as most critical to the success of our city? And I just advise you that we've been partners with Lincoln High School, giving graduates scholarships to college. And we've also been partners, as you heard, with Stewart Middle School, helping them achieve their best for their students. So again, what partners do you see as most critical to the success of our city? Jim?
I think there are so many areas that we can be good team players. And as really an architect to facilitate bringing people together, this is the foundation of what I believe we can do for our city. Who that should be? Well, obviously the business community needs to feel that we're going to reach out. So you look at the chamber, the industrial business base down in the port, we need to reach out with them. The service clubs, absolutely. As being a part of Rotary for 40 years, I certainly know the collaboration that we enjoy as Rotarians with many other groups. Habitat for Humanity, the Tacoma Housing Authority, being better with Metro Parks. I think we are also looking at a lot of elements right now with silos that we need to bring together. The TPU seems to be more isolated from the city. We need to bring the collaboration so we support TPU. The port seems to think, we're not listening to them either as a city. We need to reach out. that a job base that we can get through the port is something that we need to start doing better on, and that partnering there is going to be very important. Metro Parks, we encourage a lot of collaboration with Metro Parks. I really like that. We can actually learn a lot from Metro Parks because they know better how to reach out to the public, and our city needs to learn some of those good lessons. So it's across the board in many different areas. Again, being open and receptive to ideas from all sorts of different groups is what I want to see as being your mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Victoria?
A lot of the partnerships you mentioned, all of our government partners, our federal delegation, all of those who are elected, you're right. Businesses, service clubs, community organizations, schools, metro parks. But I think we left out one person in that list, and that's the people who live here. I think that we need to make sure that we're partnering with everyone in the city, because really the success of the city doesn't just fall on the mayor's back. The success of the city is up to all of us who live and work here. And so I think in addition to those, we've got to make sure that we're involving citizens who live here. I think the work that you all do with Lincoln and with Stewart and work that other community organizations do, that's what makes our community go. The city can't do it all. It's impossible for the city to do it all. That's why it is so important that you all play your role and that other organizations play theirs. But I think that we've got to work with absolutely everybody in order to make the city successful.
Thank you very much. Next question. We've seen a rise in the city's homeless population. What would you do specifically to address the human suffering issue? Victoria?
Thank you for that question. We have seen homelessness on the rise, and homelessness isn't just an issue here in Tacoma. Homelessness really is becoming a national epidemic, but especially here on the I-5 corridor and in this region. Well, I can tell you a couple things, not just what I want to do, but what I've already done. As a member of the City Council, when we started looking at funding for in the 17 and 18 budget, we took a deep breath and said, wait a second. We keep trying to think that homeless is just about putting a roof over someone's head. And that's part of the solution. But a lot of people who are homeless in our community have issues much bigger than just being able to find a place to sleep at night. They've got mental health issues, they've got drug addiction issues, they need job training opportunities. We've got to invest in all of that if we're really going to break the cycle of homelessness in Tacoma. I think what we want is we want people to be able to be self-sufficient. And that means we've got to provide all of those services. So number one, I'd make sure that we're continuing to do that we're funding all of the needs to break the cycle of homelessness on a continuum. The other thing that we've got to recognize is that there are some people in our community who will never be able to live on their own. And so we have to look at permanent supportive housing solutions. So I think those are some of the things that we have to do in order to address homelessness in our community. Right now, the number I heard the other day was staggering. 2,800 people are homeless in our city. And every week, 75 more people are on the brink of becoming homeless. That's a lot of people. But part of that comes with making sure that we have more family wage jobs in our community, that we make sure that we're providing people not just with a job, but with a job that actually will supply their needs, that where they can actually take care of our family. I say so often we talk about people who are unemployed, and that's one piece of it, but there are people who wake up and go to work every single day who are still living in their cars and couch surfing. So we need to make sure that we're providing family wage jobs, but that we're also taking care of the needs of everyone on that continuum so we can break the cycle.
Thank you. Jim?
The homeless situation has become tragic. It has been with us, obviously, throughout our lives, obviously. So what's happening, though, like with the city right now doing what I call warehousing people in the tent, we're just kind of cleaning some things up. It's kind of upset the whole culture of the homeless, because there is a culture out there in the homeless, and it has been broken down. Yesterday, the City Council had a study session, and they had been talking the last few months about 3 steps in this process. Well, they don't even know where step 3 is going to be, and I've been hearing them a couple of times. So you've got to have an idea where you're going with this. I've been meeting with some social workers that are involved in the grassroots of this issue. It has to do with building self-esteem, getting job skills, finding pathways where they can get into potential work. All of this becomes very necessary. We do have, you see, in one statistic, it's about 1,500 homeless. I did hear these same numbers where, you know, actually some of it is over 3,000 to 3,500 right now in our city. So it's getting really beyond what we'd ever imagined it would be at this time. So what we have to do is find housing that we can start moving into, whether it's small housing, small group homes, but you got to make sure that there's safety, because what you end up with, because of the different components, the mental health and the addiction issues are interwoven in this whole problem. Now, for over 20 years, I was right next to my office downtown, the Rescue Mission, Nativity House, and Last Chance Shelter. We worked with our police force in finding, because those that get preyed on is a big issue. We have to start getting our service providers to understand that in the building is where they do their programs, but they feel that when they leave the door, that's not their problem. That's where the issue really becomes significant, because that's where those that are having these issues are going to be preyed on by those that are trying to get their subsistence checks. And I've seen it, and basically in those earlier years in the 80s, we started to move down and started to get more help with the smaller agencies. I would have liked to have seen the dollars that was spent, that the city spent almost, you know, they say 3.5, now I hear it's 4 million on this tent, was still as disruptive, and it's become more dangerous on the street because of it. So we need to start getting to smaller groups, getting it so it's focused one-on-one, and start to understand that the homeless trust the former homeless. Those that have been down the path is the best teachers and the best to guide and show them the future path. So I would certainly think this is a big issue that I want to be involved in, to work with the agencies and help support them. And we can start getting a handle and get people into a better future.
Thank you, Jim. Next question. Our port is a tremendous resource for our community. What new types of businesses do you envision being a part of the port, and what would you do to encourage their development? Jim?
First of all, the issue with the port is kind of a moving target right now. We hear about a sub-area plan, about what we're going to do and that we're going to encourage or discourage, and there's interim regulations. I think it's kind of getting ahead of the game, because we need to get a vision of what we want to be as a city. We don't have that. Everything is done in kind of these little pocket plans, so we don't know what do we want to become, what kind of a city and what kind of a supportive industrial base do we want. I think it would be presumptuous for me to say we need A, B, and C. That's not how I operate as an architect and as a planner and a facilitator. The idea is that we need to come together as a community and start working out what we want in our job base, in the industrial base, and in where it responds to it. Because a plan that looks just as a port is ignoring a couple of very important areas for our industrial job base. And that is, Nally Valley has a history of industrial job base. What's going to happen with that? That should be part of the plan. What about our connections to Frederickson? Even though that's in the county, it's very important for the city to get those connections and what that's going to be, because right now, there's really not a good connection, whether it's the Canyon Corridor, the Waller Corridor, what happens to the rail. And if there's 20,000 more people living in that corridor in the next 20 years, we got a problem in getting our connection of our industrial base. As a city, we need to start looking at it more holistically. Of course, the core is the port area, but these other issues need to be considered very quickly. So we need to look at what even the future areas are for industrial jobs, because even those areas aren't going to do it for the next 40, 50 years. As mayor, what I want to see is the facilitating start of what that vision is going to be, how we define the linkages and the opportunities and the kind of jobs, so we don't get issues like LNG and methanol happening behind closed doors with signed deals by the city council that seem to okay it before we even know what's going on. We need to know when somebody comes into this community and wants to do a certain kind of a use, that they can understand the framework. And if they want to promote and sell the details and technically what it's going to take, give them a shot. But if it can't measure up, we have a right before there's big investments and fights like we've been seeing happen.
Thank you, Jim. Victoria?
I think our port is an asset. When we talk about family wage jobs in our city, a lot of the family wage jobs that we have are in our port. And we need to remember it as such. One thing that's so great about Tacoma, though, is that we do have a port, we do have a downtown Tacoma, and we do have neighborhood business districts. But our port really is an economic engine in Tacoma. I think that the sub-area plan for us is going to be a great opportunity for us to decide what we want our port to be. I think it's an opportunity for us to dream and to come up with a plan together. But I want to make sure that the sub-area plan, again, includes businesses on the port, that includes the Port of Tacoma, that includes the Puyallup tribe, but that it also includes the residents, the people who live in the city, so that we can all sit down together and decide what direction do we want our port to take. We spent a long time cleaning up the port, and certainly those of us who've been here for a really long time remember what the port used to be and how much better it is now. I want to make sure it stays like it is now, but that we continue to use it for the port that it is, and that we can continue to create the family wage jobs that we have on the port.
Thank you. Next question. The housing market supply is falling further and further behind demand in our community, raising rents and home costs beyond the pre-crash highs. What would you do to work with developers to increase supply in the city while at the same time ensuring affordable housing remains for long-term residents?
For those of you who've seen me at a forum before, you're going to hear this story for the 50th time. But this is something that is very near and dear to me. Most recently, my mother, who'd been living in the same house for 24 years, and she chose to be a renter all of her life. She never purchased. But living in the same house for 24 years, came home in the middle of April to a note on her sink from her landlord, who decided he wanted to reap the benefits of his investment and sell his home, and that my mother had 4 weeks to find a place to live. It was extremely difficult to find a place for her to live. She's in her mid-70s. Our only saving grace was that she had great rental history for 24 years. We were able to finally find her a place with a 2-week extension. We were able to find her a place, but she moved from a 2-story house with a basement into a 2-bedroom apartment at 1.5 times the amount of rent that she was paying in her house. Affordability is a serious issue in our community. So I think when we talk about affordability, I think we've got to make sure that we talk about where we're developing and how we're developing and how we're building density in our city, so that we're being really smart about it, so that we're building on corridors where it makes sense. I think that as we work with developers, right now we offer a 10 or a 12-year tax abatement process. I want to make tax incentive process, property taxes early in the morning still. And I only had tea, not coffee. I need more caffeine. But right now we offer a tax abatement program for developers in our city. And we do it for 10 or 12 years if they provide some affordability. But I think we've got to make sure that when we do that we do it in perpetuity, that we make sure that we're providing it for the long haul. When we give something to someone in our community in order to build, we should get something back for our community. I also think that we need to continue to work with, our Tacoma Housing Authority does an amazing job at building quality, affordable housing in our community. I think we've got to continue to work with them so they can continue to develop projects in Tacoma. But I think mostly we've got to make sure that we're working directly with developers. We're making it easy for them to develop and as efficient for them to develop, so that we can make sure that we have more housing stock in our community for those who need it.
Thank you. Jim?
I've had the good fortune in my career to do many housing projects. Multifamily, I've done residential at all different scales. We have a problem of really having the numbers, because the rents or the cost of those go because of supply and demand. It's all economics 201 that we most had in college, right? So what I believe we need is a couple of things. First, on the home ownership side, and then there's the rental side. We need to get our city goal to 60% home ownership in every neighborhood. That is a goal that there have been in the past. We're a goal in the city, and it really started on the Hilltop, because the Hilltop after World War II, because the exodus, that was the start of the exodus from our core city, made that area drop to about 20% home ownership, a lot of rentals. There are some what you call slumlords or whatnot on there that have 40, 50, 60 houses that are renting, that isn't in the churn of home ownership. What I believe we need to do is start first with a municipal bank. We can collaborate with the banking industry, but have a city municipal bank. The city municipal bank can work with HUD grants to help with down payments. You can get, with the right facilitation, a HUD grant of $10,000 for down payment. So low-income folks, we can do that, and then they're not get. It's a no interest that you can get, so that it'll get paid back, but it'll be paid back upon the refinancing once they get an asset built. When you're renting, you're not building an asset. You're getting to go to the owner of the landlord. We need to get people in grassroots and by the bootstrap, bringing them all up. So we need that bank. We also need to tie in that bank to a mortgage that's based on 30% of income, so that it can be pegged there. Now, and there's some, there'll be some struggles in that, but we need to find that pathway, and I believe we can. Because once you get to a refinance position, whether it's 5 or 8 years, the stability of that will be there. The asset will be built for those folks, and we start lifting the bottom. Now, on the other side of renting needs to have incentives truly built into the first part of a tax abatement or a tax reduction incentive. We have it right now. It's an 8-year or a 12-year actually. The 12 years where you can get if you have affordable or low-cost units in your project. Nobody takes it. Why? It's very simple. If you do projects, you'd understand. It's the first few years that's a problem. So the 8 years, fine, because you're out of the woods with that. You don't need the other. So nobody's going for the 12. Sounds good, but it's not going to happen. We need to have it that it's mandated first at the front end, and it's not something that drops off at the end of the tax abatement. We need to make sure. There's another issue out there I want just to point out briefly, because this goes on and on, is a community land trust. A community land trust is a way that is used around the country that you basically purchase land in houses, come into the building stock, and build the houses, and those are for low-income folks, and they get some capital gains when they sell, but it's not this, you're not going to hit home runs, but something that has to stay in that marketplace so that it remains affordable units. With a certain percentage can be rental, but the idea is to bring the bottom up by letting them start building assets and having for bankers that are retiring to assist in mentoring how to finance, how to refinance, so they're not left to the the lenders that are really some unscrupulous. We need to make sure they're protected as they start to move their way up. So there's a lot we can do in this area. We need to start moving forward with some of these ideas.
Thank you, Jim. Next question. Despite an improving economy, we continue to see vacant commercial space in the downtown corridor. What strategies do you have to encourage growth in this area? Jim?
First of all, this ties to really getting the economic engine, to me, for the western part of the state to begin with. We need to be able to show and illustrate that operating costs are less in Tacoma than you'll get in King County and Seattle. So as mayor, we'll have our top 10 list where I go to those companies and start working to get them here in our town and show them operating costs. It's not rent, it's not even the cost of labor, which can be pretty much equal, but it's the operating cost. Because you can operate from Tacoma up on the peninsula in half a day to work with clients. In Seattle, it's a full day. We need to be able to illustrate that. And we do have a lot of buildings, and some of these issues are because of the context. The buildings are too small, and as an architect, I certainly know what they have to deal with. I've done lots of them that are already restored. It's a matter of vertical ADA, accessibility issues become a factor. Elevator, double stairs, exiting. You can't do it in all these little buildings. So you got to do some consolidation. You've got to show owner-occupied buildings so they can pay a higher rent from these new companies coming in. So we can start working with them to have a solid base of growing jobs and filling some of the spaces. We do have things like Spaceworks or the arts that are using some of the storefront, but we need to get activity in the building. We also need to do multi-use where upper stories can be living units. We did that what's now the University building called the McDonald Artist Street Lofts. We had 23 units, they were full the whole time. So there's all sorts of ways. I want to be a facilitator that starts connecting people and then making certain that permits get out. The other thing is some of these projects that we'd like to see happen is they're languishing trying to get their permits. because we have so many different, it's silos, that trite word, but there's like 6 different areas you get a permit, and they don't really talk very well. So one of my roles and goals would be, let's get a consolidated answer, and this answer you stick by when you get a permit. That will dramatically change the opportunity and those that see, hey, we can go to Tacoma. Because I just heard from some builders just the other day, yesterday in fact, they said, you know, we want to stay out of Tacoma. They just are not trustworthy. We cannot rely on the decisions. That has to change.
Thank you, Jim. Victoria?
So I would agree that we do need to fix our permit system. It's really interesting. You hear from some businesses. Just the other day I was talking to somebody who just located to Tacoma, and they said Tacoma's the easiest place to do business. And I've been to several places. And then you talk to some people, I go, Tacoma's really a tough place to do business. So I think we've got to get to the bottom line of what that really is and ask specific questions so we can go after and actually fix those issues. But I think as we think about empty buildings in Tacoma, we've also got to think about what businesses do we want to go in there? How can we grow those businesses? I was just at the RAIN incubator the other day. It's a new biotech incubator in Tacoma, and they're growing small businesses. How can we grow? We always talk about big business in Tacoma, but how can we grow local business in Tacoma to take up some of those spaces through programs like Space Work? How can we really push our entrepreneurial spirit here and get people to build their own businesses so that if the buildings are small and not big enough for large companies, then we can fill those with local companies, with smaller local companies, and help them grow. I think that one of the things that we can do as a city, especially in our economic development department, and as mayor, we are the face of the city, so we should be able to talk to people and get people to do business here, but we're not the experts on everything. If we sit here as mayors and told you we knew everything, you should look at us and wonder what the heck we're talking about, because you can't know everything. But you do have people who are experts, and how can we work with those to make sure that we're providing that expertise to people who want to start businesses and who want to be successful here? So I think in our economic department, we should make sure that we have somebody who is working, who will sit down. We just got a federal grant not too long ago that's working with minority and women businesses here in Tacoma, helping them start up businesses from the ground up, helping them write a business plan. A lot of those spaces that we're talking about that are vacant in Tacoma, those are spaces that they can go into and they can grow into. So I think that's a way that we can address that.
Thank you. Okay, I have 2 more questions left from the audience. And this question is, how do you prevent Tacoma from becoming Seattle's bedroom community? The S word, Seattle. Victoria?
That's an even greater question. I just sat around at a living room last night with a group of people talking about how we don't want to be Seattle, and a couple who just moved here from LA said, how come we don't want to be Seattle? And we realized they'd only been here a short period of time. But we don't want to be Seattle. The word I loved that people used in our conversation was last night is that Tacoma's got grit. We're our own place. And while we can benefit from Seattle, we don't have to become Seattle. And I think that the other opportunity we have is we have an opportunity to learn from Seattle. They grew really fast too. And we have an opportunity to learn from some of the things they've done and not to do those very same things, and make sure that we keep Tacoma the place that we want it to be. We talked about something. One is we got to make sure we're addressing affordability very quickly, because otherwise what's going to happen is we are going to push people right out of Tacoma. We're going to push them out to the suburbs, and we're going to lose the diversity in our city that makes our city so incredibly special. Traffic in Tacoma is already an issue, but we've got to make sure that we're providing more transportation options in our city. So that traffic doesn't get any worse than it already is. But I think those are a couple things we can do as a city, but I also think that we've got to just continue to remember that Tacoma is a special place, and what makes Tacoma so special is everyone who gets to live here and everyone who gets to participate in the city.
Thank you. Jim?
I was with a group not too long ago, someone looking at our workforce and where we're going as a city. Frankly, I already said we are a bedroom community already. That's pretty tragic. So we are there. In the last couple of years, there were 62 cranes in the skyline of Seattle, in the urban center. How many were in Tacoma? 2. Those two are for residential projects, 5 to 6 stories, that's it. We have one now that's down there for a nice economic engine, but that's it. The job growth is a serious matter. We do not have the tax base to do the public services like we need, and this keeps getting ignored. Our police force is at about half of staffing what they need. The 4 sectors do not have full staffing. They're on overtime and they're getting tired, and these things are becoming tragic. Our fire department is in a very difficult situation. There are times when there's something on the fireboat issue that there is no fire protection companies north of 6th Avenue at night. Now, how do you like that? That's where we are right now as a city. We have so many good things that we can do, but we need to be a friendly city as far as responsiveness, reliable city for answers, and share this economic advantage and opportunity to get those jobs growing here. That's the way we get away from being a better community. I also talked about our transportation. 50% or more of our workforce leaves this town to go to work every day. Try it on I-5. That window of time that gets around noon is getting less and less, where you don't even want to get on I-5 because you can't get anywhere. This has got to change. I say I want to get Sound Transit moving a little quicker. I think we can. My goal is to get it in 5 years to the airport. It's going to be down to 320th already. They say it's 20 miles. It's not 20 miles we're dealing with. It's about 8 or 9. We just need to get that connection done. Then we are the economic engine. We have a competitive advantage over downtown Seattle to the airport, to our international business. We have our port connected to the Northwest Seaport Alliance. We need to be a player. The mayor needs to get in there and start helping to get these connections so that we can get the job growth happening, so we are not a veteran community. We had opportunities twice in the last 150 years that we got close. Everybody thinks that in the 80s that we were almost there. It'll be our turn. It will pass us up again if we don't get our consolidated vision and start working towards a vision that people will understand what we are, so they're not surprised after they invest that this didn't work out for them. We have got to be clear what we're going to be as a city, the vision, reliability, good answers, and then we'll start being our own center for all of Western Washington, plus our national, international business. This could be an exciting time for the city, but we got to make some steps and change the way we do business.
Thank you, Jim. And if I'm remembering this correctly, I think Tacoma was called the City of Destiny. So the last question is, what worries you the most about the future of Tacoma? Jim?
I'm a very optimistic person. But frankly, this could be very dire for this community. If we don't get our tax base growing, and this is where I'm really most concerned about, our safety net is going to get worse. Our police will not be able to cover things. Right now, there are calls to 911 that I can give you a state legislature to not even get a 911 response. You say, well, you should be getting more than others. Well, that means there's a lot that aren't getting responses. 311 is there, but our responsiveness as a city is really hurting. Our tax base per 1,000 right now is double what Seattle says per 1,000. So even if they may be twice the value, the tax base is almost the same. When we're losing DaVita and these kind of companies, and the message they will give, because it's all about relationships, those CEOs and those management teams talk to others. We're in a hole right now. We've got to start changing our methods to get things done. I want to be positive, and I want to change this approach. It's why I keep talking about a culture change. It's an attitude. It's how we work so that we can be a team player in the Northwest, but also to help everybody locally. Because if we don't, what we had in the 70s and 80s with the growth of gang issues and breakdown of safety, we could see it again. I don't want to go there. I am running for mayor to make certain that this slide stops. That we need to start getting our tax base up to afford what we need to do in this city. And that needs to start happening. The fork in the road is very serious right now. So we need to start moving forward with this and make some good decisions with good team players, with all of you involved to get those right answers. And we can get there. This is not a long-term thing once we start making some course corrections. And we can have a happy city and take care of some of these issues.
Thank you, Jim. Victoria?
And I'm going to rephrase your question. I tend to see the glass half full, and where are opportunities? I often mention when I am talking about the 3 points that I hear about that I leave, protecting our safety net for the last thing that I say. And I don't leave it for the last thing because it's the third thing on my list. I leave it as the last thing so that it's the last thing that you hear me talk about. I think our opportunity and the thing that keeps me up at night is how we focus on taking care of that safety net, those who are mentally ill or homeless, and affordability in our community. And I say that because I believe that if we take care of those who need it the most in Tacoma, that everyone will do better. If we make sure that those who are homeless have a place to live and a place to sustain and a job and a way to take care of themselves, we'll all do better. So I kind of believe that frame of when we all do better, we all do better. I'll give you an example of that that's really simple for me. If you think about when the ADA made us start putting curb cutouts so that for people who were in wheelchairs, they could actually get across the curb, they could actually get across the sidewalk by being able to go down the curb cutout. But that just didn't affect people, that didn't just help people who were in wheelchairs. That helped moms with strollers, that helped little babies who were walking, that helped seniors. So it really helped everyone, but we thought about the people who needed it the most. As mayor, that's what I want to do. I want to make sure that while we're taking care of those who need it the most, that everybody in our city gets taken care of. As we're providing opportunities for those who need it the most, everyone benefits from those opportunities. So as I said earlier, and this is our last question and probably wrap up, I want to be a mayor that provides opportunities. Opportunities for kids to get a great education. Opportunities for everyone to have good jobs. Opportunities for businesses to grow and flourish in this great city. We are the city of destiny, and I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to fulfill theirs.
Thank you, Victoria. And thank you, Jim. That concludes us.
Is we going to have a wrap up?
Oh, okay. Is there time for wrap up?
I just gave mine.
Yeah, Jim, go ahead.
Okay.
I'll give a wrap up, that'd be fine.
I think this could be a very exciting time. We are in a direction right now that is very dramatic, the different pathways we may be on here. So there's a lot to think about. For me, as an architect, a leader in the public and private sectors, I'm a Democrat, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a grandfather from Tacoma. So I know there's a lot to be proud of in our city. But I am running for mayor to change the culture of our local government so that we start working with our citizens, not against them, again, so we start listening to the taxpayers and not these special interests. So I say again, my vote for me is not a vote for those agendas, but it's a vote for a seat at the table for everyone. So I humbly ask for your support and your vote for mayor in 34 days for the election. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's give them both a group.